Welcome to episode 542 of Salsidoparanormal, and tonight I'm starting my review of the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. And I have no idea if I'm saying that name correctly. I apologize if not. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me, at the podcast page, and that is salsidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from y'all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live streams on Discord or if you listen to the podcast or YouTube feeds, or on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of the show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. As always, I want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, as well as Liam Martin, host of the Exiled Minds podcast, for producing these shows and putting them up on the station as you hear them there with the music at the beginning and end of every episode. If you'd like to help the show, there are some different ways to do that. You can always find books I've written. Skipping around here. You can always share the show with others. There we go. And or rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can always sign up for the Patreon page, where you'll find 1 extra episode of the show per month. Always true paranormal stories from the web. You can also find some books I've written over on Amazon, paranormal fiction and nonfiction. And you can make a one-time donation through PayPal. Help is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows, from equipment to research materials to travel expenses in some cases. I think that covers everything, so we're going to get into this review. It's going to be probably a series of 3 or 4 shows spread out throughout the next couple weeks here, just because of some other things I want to talk about besides the general plot of the story. As I mentioned before, I want to talk about some of the ways that Stephen King's book Salem's Lot were, I believe, influenced by this novel, Dracula. So, and there are some parallels between some of the characters. So it's really a neat thing to look at, I think, anyway, and sort of see some patterns and types of people that are involved between those 2 fictional universes, and sort of the similarities and differences there. So that's basically the plan, but I'll start the review of this, the book here with this show, and probably won't get through the whole storyline, so it'll be just part of that today. So let me get to the my source, my cheat sheet here I got from Wikipedia. So and I did listen to the book a little while back. So this book starts out with Jonathan Harker, who is an English solicitor. It's basically someone that helps with legal and, I guess, financial matters. So they are asked to visit Count Dracula at his castle, Dracula's castle, in the Carpathian Mountains, because the Count basically wants to purchase a house near London, England. So, and there are a few things that happen there almost basically immediately. Never mind just the path of getting there. Everyone in the country along Jonathan's journey, once they find out where he's going, they all fear for his life, and one woman even begs him not to go, And then when he says he needs to go, she gives him, I believe it's a crucifix. It's a cross on a chain. And so anyway, my nose is bothering me here. Sorry about that. So he gets to the castle at last after a long journey. Because again, this novel was written in the near the end of the 1800s, and so he gets to this castle, and he's invited in. After he gets there, it takes a little while for Dracula to open the door and everything. But he is Jonathan Harker is led into a set of rooms where he is told he will be staying while he is there, and so the two, basically Dracula and Jonathan Harker, start to talk, and Jonathan starts to learn more about the Count and sort of, but also notices some strange things about him. First of all, of course, as was typical with vampires, because that is what the Count is, the creature that needs to live off of the blood of others to survive, to keep existing as he is. And but Jonathan notices that he never sees the Count during the day. Dracula always arrives at night to talk and go over plans, and leaves in the morning, before sunrise, I believe. And so eventually everything is arranged, but the Count tells Jonathan Harker that he needs Harker to stay for a while longer to arrange everything and help make sure everything goes smoothly. And so Jonathan doesn't seem to have a choice, because the doors leading out of the castle are locked, and he cannot get them open. He is also warned against going into other rooms that have locked doors. And at one point, just wondering what's going on with the Count and everything, Jonathan Harker does find a room with a closed door and opens it. And he was warned by Dracula also not to be out and wandering the castle at night either. And eventually, due to wandering around and trying to get into this one room that has a closed door, he does arrive in this one room that is separate from the others that he was in at night, basically. And these three figures appear out of nowhere, starting off slowly like mist, or like a just basically materializing. And it's three women. And they're beautiful, but also terrible. And it turns out they are similar to Dracula. They are vampires. And they are looking at Jonathan Harker as basically their next meal. Again, this is horror. This is earlier horror. And they also seem to be putting Jonathan Harker in some kind of a trance. And they are just about to literally bite his neck, when Dracula shows up and orders them all away. And they move back, and Jonathan is still in this daze and still trying to figure out how the Count got into the room, because he just appeared again as well. And the Count ends up dropping this. They're putting this bag, tied bag, on the floor, and there's something in the bag moving around. And he basically tells the three women, "This is your meal. Jonathan Harker is not to be touched." So, and Jonathan Harker passes out from all this, and wakes up back in his room, in the rooms that he was told to stay in, basically, once he got there. So eventually he notices Dracula leave, and he tries to find a way out. Eventually he does, but it's a dangerous journey and everything, and I'm not going to give all the details because, again, I would recommend listening to or reading the book. It is a different style of book in that it's made up of journal entries, diary entries, memos, and newspaper articles, basically even letters from one of the main characters to another, and that is how the account or the novel is written. So every section is a part of the story from one character's point of view. So other than Dracula, of course, he's in the story, but he never has his own section on his own. And so the story progresses with Jonathan Harker and his friends noticing strange activities happening in and around London, including one of Jonathan's fiance's friends falling ill suddenly. Of course, Jonathan's fiance is Mina Harker. Will eventually be Harker in the story. They do get married. I believe, I can't remember if they got married before or not. I think it was. See, I can't remember now. But either way, they do become husband and wife. So while Jonathan is stuck, basically kidnapped, being held prisoner in the castle, well, first of all, the Count orders him to write some letters. He tries to write letters to be sent out and to ask for help. And the Count finds them and gives him instructions on different letters to write to explain that Jonathan Harker, will be staying at the castle longer than expected, and all those kinds of things, sort of to cover up what's going on. And but meanwhile, Mina Harker is exchanging letters with her friend Lucy Westenra, I believe is the last name. And the course of the story goes where Lucy starts feeling ill and drained of all energy. And so the story goes from there. And it's basically, the book is about a group of friends and sort of co-workers in different fields and medical profession and other things like that, who learn about Dracula arriving in England via boat. And of course, because Dracula is a vampire and needs blood, people start either vanishing or showing up dead after this one ship carrying several coffins full of ground from Dracula's castle once this arrives. And it is also basically explained that Dracula also arrived on that ship. So yeah, the story is basically, that's the story about this group of friends that go after Dracula as their own number, as basically Lucy first is drained of blood over and over again, and sort of used to keep the Count going and make him stronger. And so, yeah, that's basically the story. This group of people eventually try to hunt down Dracula, and it's about that whole series of events. And this is happening in the late 1800s. So there isn't the kind of technology that we have today, exactly. So it's all basically about telegrams and again, using this older technology to try to communicate and explain what's going on from one friend to another and try to figure out what's going on. So I definitely recommend the book. Obviously, it is a major inspiration to a lot of other fiction over the years. And so I'm just trying to think here. I guess I did kind of summarize it pretty fast there, but I really want to leave a lot of that book open to everyone to check it out. You can find it in audio versions or formats. And I found it for free, actually, through one of those online audio book. Well, it's an online store, and has an audiobook section, and it's they have certain classics that I guess at this point have become public domain. They have certain classics read out loud by a bot, by a text-to-speech voice, basically, program. And that's how I found that and Frankenstein, which I will be reviewing at a later date. And so that's how I listened to that book. So again, this is sort of one of the major influences as far as the idea of vampires, even though I've heard on various shows over the years there are a lot of different versions of creatures and entities that seem to live off of the blood of others. Vampires, in that traditional sort of Victorian sense, is just one version of that. But I guess since this is going faster than I thought, I can talk about. I did a review of a couple of Stephen King books in an episode quite a while ago now, and one of them in the one episode was about Salem's Lot. And there are some similarities there between some of the characters in that book and some of the characters in Dracula. For instance, and this is, I guess, a good way to sort of bring up some of the characters in Dracula. There is a school teacher in this town of Jerusalem's Lot, which is where the story takes place in that book, who is aware of all the folklore but does not believe that it's about anything real, necessarily, until things start happening in and around Salem's Lot, as the locals call it. People start disappearing or acting strange, like they sort of becoming vampires themselves. And so this character, this school teacher, his name is, and now I forget now. I should have looked it up. I shouldn't try to wing this. First name is Matt, I believe is his name. He starts taking on this role of the head of a group of people trying to resist what's going on. And again, that's sort of similar to this doctor, medical professional in Dracula. You may have heard the name in other movies before, Van Helsing, who also is aware of all the folklore, even though in that case it's not exactly, like I said, a one-for-one, because it is indicated but never really explained, I don't think, that Van Helsing knows that there are entities out there that are not thought by many to be real. And so there's that similarity there. I think it's Matt Burke. That's just coming back to me now. So I may still do a whole separate show on this at some point, but just to sort of give a little bit of a comparison here. One of the other characters is, let me see, Ben Mears. He comes back to the town where he spent a lot of his childhood years at around the same time as all the strange disappearances start. And he's a writer. And he's trying to figure out what he wants to work on, or has this idea for a book at some point involving this mansion in outside of Jerusalem's Lot. But anyway, he is sort of, I would compare him almost to Jonathan Harker in Dracula. And now in Salem's Lot, the difference here is that he meets a woman in Salem's Lot, Susan Norton, who sort of is similar to Mina Harker in Dracula, in that they're aware of things going on, and they want to be involved in trying to figure it all out. So, and of course, things don't go so well for them. But again, there are differences in those two books between what happens to them. I guess you can almost say in a way that Susan Norton is sort of the influences for that character are Mina Harker and then Lucy Westenra from Dracula. So, but so yeah, that's that character. There is a vampire in head vampire, the vampire in charge in Salem's Lot. His name is Kurt Barlow. Very intelligent, very good at planning, and sort of supposed to be like a modern day Count Dracula in a way. And of course, this was written, I believe, back in the 70s, but it's modern in a sense only compared to Dracula. So, but yeah, so I think that's a good sort of place to start with all those things. I will go into more of the characters and the similarities and differences in a future show, and maybe even the next show. I think actually tomorrow night, as I'm recording this, that might be the next show for that. And I think it may only be a 2-show thing after all for Dracula, but it's okay. So yeah, looking forward to doing that show next. Sort of going over the characters in both Dracula and Salem's Lot, and sort of finding the parallels between those characters and what's going on in those stories. So that's all for today as far as that goes. I want to thank everyone for listening to these shows. Sorry for the extended break there where I didn't put out any shows for a while. Had some major technical difficulties and had to get a new PC, and that takes some time to dial in all the settings. So and get them get them to the way you want them. So it's amazing how long that can take. It's ironic, and I'll stop with this, but in a minute. It's ironic because I got the same PC as I did last time, the exact same model. But because of all the time, the 3 or so years that I had the last one, that's a lot of time to get things sort of fine-tuned the way you want. And then starting over again, even with the same machine, the identical copy of the same machine, it just takes time, and I'm finding that out now. So, but I think everything seems to be working okay. And looking forward to being back to doing these shows every Friday and Saturday on my Discord server at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, and putting out the shows that I record from those days every Monday through Thursday. So yeah, that's the plan for that. I will get to Frankenstein in a later book review, a couple of shows there, and so yeah, that's the plan. Thank you all for listening. Please, if you check out the podcast page and see all the links to all the other people that and their projects, please check those out. Please support them. They've been a great support to the show, and I've been on some of their shows in some cases. Really enjoyed that. So thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all on the next episode of Salsidoparanormal. Take care.